Alright, let's look at comics number 21 and 22 in the Smithsonian Book of Newspaper Comics. The Naps of Polly Sleepyhead by Peter Newell, 1906, and Naughty Pete by Charles Forbull, 1913. But first, the next page of the Encyclopedia of Comics gives us a variety of images as it goes through a chronology of the century of them. We have Polly and her pals, which we have a fourfold strip. Here is a panel of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant, where we can see this beautiful rendering for his strip, which was really kind of an unfolding work of high art, I suppose one could call it. Here is Barnaby by Crockett Johnson. Here we have Barnaby and his fairy godfather talking to a ghost. Now this is reproduced very small, so that the words are a little hard to read, but we're in the middle of an adventure involving a haunted house. And here we really see an update of Buster Brown with his imaginary friends, or Little Nemo with his imaginary friends, who may or may not be imaginary. And this will continue with Charlie Brown and with Calvin and Hobbes and the rest. And here we have, I suppose, a sort of an advertisement or a flash poster for Red Ryder and Little Beaver, which was a Western strip. Westerns being a very important genre for decades, both in comics and, of course, for film and television. But anyway, Polly Sleepyhead is, I am not quite familiar with this, but I would guess that this was a Sunday strip, since dailies were still in a nascent stage. This seems very reminiscent of Little Nemo, but it's also very reminiscent, of course, of Alice in Wonderland, which was made published in 1865. And so, the influence of Alice in Wonderland is actually quite tremendous, because Alice, in many ways, inspired the Oz books, and it sort of, it didn't create children's literature, but it shaped children's literature in a very important way. This character does remind me of, some versions of the Alice character. This would be the same time period when Peter Pan was being created, of course. Now here we have typed text, which is our narration, and the text even has words number 1, number 2, because I suppose we were still teaching people how to read panels sequentially. So it is kind of a mixture, because it's a little bit like Little Nemo, but it's also a little bit like a picture book, which we've seen in some of the early comics. And Little Nemo did have text in its very earliest version. So here, Polly is looking at some bunnies, and the Joker comes from the Shadowlands. The Shadowlands assuredly are a version of Dreamland, and this is before the Joker, that term became a part of, Batman lore, but the Joker here is just a term for our trickster. Tricksters are in charge of dreams, a little bit like Flip. So anyway, she goes to Dreamland. There's an automobile, which are still newfangled and weird, and the bunny plants attack. Now with Naughty Pete, this is some very interesting design work for this strip, because we have the black outline, but we also have the way it's read. Even without the numbers, I think someone would know how to read it. But when we read English, it's kind of a weird loop. We want to have it a little bit smoother. But I think this works for what it's trying to accomplish. We have a statue, and of course the colors keep everything distinct. The statue is white, the parents and the banister are red, green background, and the boy's white. So we know exactly where to look. Father puts the statue here, and the naughty boy slides down and breaks the statue. So it's a lot like the Cats and Jammer Kids and the Yellow Kid, in the sense that this child is very, very naughty, and that's sort of the punchline. Anyway, I really like this design. It's very interesting, very distinct. So tomorrow we will look at Mama's Angel Child, which looks to be very interesting, and the Bear Creek Folk. And I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.